Welcome back to Sunrise Daily. Well, now we do have Mr. Osita Chidoka, who is the special advisor to the PDP chairman on strategy and external engagements. Thank you for coming on this morning.
Thank you very much.
Well, speaking about the state of the polity, we did have the APC man earlier. So now, looking at it from the way some of these events have played out, yes, we do know that there's been some protest comments. The president himself has in turn responded to some of those. How do you see your reading, your perspective of what's playing out at the moment, from a security perspective, first of all?
Well, first I said there's total breakdown of the Nigerian security system. Because you see, at the base of every security system in the world, every security system you see is first and foremost underpinned by identity. You must be able to identify citizens. You must be able to know who did what. And you must have record of behavior to be able to project, to be able to draw intelligence, to be able to analyze. So what we see in Nigeria is a situation where we have somebody go into a church to attempt a bombing. And we are discussing about the name of the person, whether his name is Mohammed or Laden. It doesn't happen anywhere in the world. The moment there's a terrorist action, the first thing you hear is the background of the person involved. He is such and such a person. He entered the country on such a date. He went to this place on such a date, because the country keeps record. So I want Nigerians to understand first and foremost that the critical issue in Nigeria is the absence of identity. The second one is the failure of the security infrastructure we have today. Our security architecture, the last major overhaul was done by General Babangida when he created the SSS, DIA and NIA in 1986. That architecture was designed for regime protection by a military government. It doesn't have the capability, it is not nimble enough, it is not agile enough to react to emerging threats, to the mutation of security challenges that we have in Nigeria today.
Sorry to jump in before you get to your next point. What can be done differently in that regard?
So I was going to get to what will be done, because it is for us to identify the issue. We've identified identity. We've identified a security infrastructure architecture that is faulty, designed for regime protection. And then, more importantly now, we have also a major problem of recruitment, appointment, and promotion in the security agencies that is nepotistic, that is corrupt, that is not transparent. Our best and the brightest are not in the security agencies. And then lastly is the question of funding. Our security agencies, our security architecture is poorly funded. The federal government cannot manage it. Now, the police has about 9,300 police formations, going from the headquarters, the zonal offices, the state commands, to the DPOs, down to police posts. If you take the budget, I'm using about 2 years ago budget, they had about less than 500 million for fueling. And you divide it by the number of police stations in Nigeria. Each station gets about 1,000 naira a day for fuel. It gets less than 1 liter of fuel a day in Nigeria. So it is absolutely impossible. The country is in the middle of a problem that requires new thinking. So what needs to be done? We have decided that we should go and do the National Identity Project. At the time we passed the NIMSI law in 2007, India passed the Unique Identification Authority law in 2009. Between then and now, India has issued 1.2 billion Aadhaar numbers. They had issued unique numbers to Indians. Nigeria is still struggling at about 15 million. So the NIMSI, the National Identity Management Agency, has failed Nigeria. And not because it failed as an agency, but because the government has not prioritized the work of the National Identity Management. When I was the Corps Marshal of the Federal Road Safety, the first thing I solved as the Corps Marshal was the issue of Nigeria's driver's license. I am proud and happy to say that anywhere you take the Nigerian driver's license to Europe and the US, they accept it, because at the core of it is identity. We got a company to produce, it was a $10 million project, to produce a driver's license that have 10 fingerprints, which we can in Nigeria give you a report about the owner of that driver's license.
So when you say absence of identity, does that mean that we've not been able to harness some of these data we have centrally.
Yes, we have not been able to harness it. And the reason why we've not been able to harness it is that the design of NIMSI was such that the voters registration card, the bank BVN, the driver's license, the national ID, the national passport, international passport, could all have been harmonized inside the national database. And for me, that is where to begin if we really want to deal with the issue of security. Because when the US banned Nigeria, I saw it coming. Because in 2011, after the September 11, 2002, after September 11 issue, the US passed a law called the Real ID Act. Because driver's license is a state matter, the federal government now says, if you issue this driver's license without the concomitant identity issues, that license will not be used for federal actions like flying, entering federal buildings. It will only remain used for state driving. So now almost all the US state governments have migrated to the Real ID license. You must bring a unique identifying document to identify you. Now in Nigeria, we have people coming over from wherever, Niger, you can come from Chad, you can come from Benin, you can come from Cameroon, and you can claim Nigeria, because there is no way to uniquely identify you. So I think that's the major problem that needs to be resolved, because every time in Nigeria, we go to what I call the aftermath of the problem. We should go back to the fundamentals of the problem. It is very disappointing that with the Boko Haram challenge, with the Niger Delta militant challenge, it exposed that our military and our security system were asleep. They didn't see the Niger Delta issue come. We had to call for an amnesty. Boko Haram has kept us for 10 years now. We're looking for a way out. One
of the other issues that came up regarding this license matter, which you spoke about, you did while you were with the FRC, is the capacity of states. Because you'd have thought that, well, much as, yes, the federal government they have a huge role to play, but the states equally have a huge role to play. But many of them today don't even have that capacity or haven't demonstrated it. If they can't do that, it's Lagos that many of them rely on to get some of these data. So
because you see, the federal government has the wherewithal to nudge compliance, to force extraction of data. That's why the US federal government quickly went and passed the Real ID Act and says every state must comply with this level of information. That's what Nigeria needs to do.
Doesn't that still foster over-centralization in our climb as at this moment? Because, I mean, from what you said, the police system is so central and everyone has to come down from that one central command and all of that. So if there is no decentralization of all of these things, including what Chamberlain just asked now, how are we going to strengthen the various federating units and consequently strengthen their security apparatus?
So you've raised the key issue. A government has to rethink our security infrastructure. How much of it is central? How much of it is local? How much of what we require the states? But even when you go to the United Nations, you go to ECOWAS, we make ECOWAS protocols asking states, contracting parties, this is what you are required to do. There must be a centralized authority saying, this is our requirements for you to do this and that. So it is tragic that at this time, in 2021, when the cost of data has fallen dramatically, when the cost of IT infrastructure has fallen dramatically, Nigeria is still not able to identify a bomber in Kaduna who went to a church. We are arguing about his name. It is symptomatic of a deep issue about Nigeria.
You raised a very fundamental issue about the security architecture the other time, where you talked about the last overhaul that was done in 1986.
Yes.
We've had several governments after that. We've had 2 military governments after Ibrahim Babangida. We've had a number of elected presidents after that. Military presidents, civilian presidents.
Yes.
Why has it taken us this long to even get to the point of talking about revamping the security architecture?
No, it hasn't taken us this long. The conversation has been on. Under President Obasanjo, he created the National Civil and Defense Corps. Under President Jonathan, he came up with the new security anti-terrorism architecture, the NAC test. Under this government, they've had some conversations about trying to align our security forces.
Well, how
But you see,
strongly did any one of those things that you just talked about
Yes.
now affect the entire security architecture?
hasn't
Because,
affected it.
forgive me, because you mentioned the other time, we have had challenges in the Niger Delta, we've had challenges in the Northeast, we've had challenges in the Southwest, and these things just seem to be, the security challenges seem to be shape-shifting and almost intractable.
it is intractable because, like I said, we have to go back to the fundamentals. And I'll give you one example of the fundamentals. The fact that in today's Nigeria, no local government or local governments are not able to issue centralized death and birth registers, certificates. That a child born in Nigeria does not have a unique birth certificate that he can use, which you can cross-check against a database, is tragic. So when this government talks about security, because the mantra upon which this APC government came to power was that they were going to restore security. And for 5 years, they haven't done anything to fundamentally resolve the issue of security. Rather, what we have seen is a more nepotistic approach to security, bringing people from one ethnic group to control the security infrastructure of Nigeria. No transparency in the appointment and promotion of police officers, SSS officers. There is no advertisement to the process of bringing in people into the security agencies. So what you have today is a situation where the weakest, people who have no capacity across all ethnic groups, are finding their way into our security services.
If I could take it a little further, I mean, back to when you spoke about governments from Obasanjo, what they created and things like that, and then again to today's Nigeria. Why is it then, because today we still have a huge challenge with security, states, regions are talking about what to do to protect themselves and their citizens. Why is it that governments time and again you run away from what do we do to address the capacity of the police rather than keep creating this unit, this force? Because different states have different form of security or the other. Why can't we address that headlong?
Because it is difficult for one individual to manage 400,000 men. It is absolutely impossible. There is no police force in the world where you have 400,000 men being managed from one point. So it is time for us to have a conversation about gradually allowing our states to grow capacity. Now, Nigeria had a problem. Our post-Civil War consensus was that we should weaken the capacity of any region or state to cause war in Nigeria. We successfully did that post-military, post-Civil War. But today, our challenges have also changed. We need to have fresh conversation about how to ensure that gradually our governors begin to manage, even if the police is centrally owned by the federal government, the operational management, the financial capacity of the police. Now, I'm telling you about police vehicles, having less than 1 liter of fuel a day.
Except that I think 1 or 2 states have fuel dumped for them.
Yes, so what you need to do is a situation where you say, okay, operational cost of every police, the federal government employs, the federal government pays salary, operational cost we can devolve to the states. Until people begin to have more confidence in the capacity of the states to run, we set up thresholds. If you meet this threshold, we reduce more power to you. Because the idea of sitting in Abuja and controlling 400,000 men, it's strange, it's anachronistic. It is in the past. So what we need to do is to begin to have a conversation. And that is what the federal government of today has failed to understand, that the key, the unlocking of the potentials of Nigeria is not in the centralization of its capacity, but really in conversations about decentralizing its capacity.
You know, speaking of conversations, it appears as though this, talk around insecurity is moving towards a dangerous trend. And that's not even in the theater of war. This seems to be in the conversations across people. And it's not ethnicity, it's not party politics, it's not religion. And I think you touched on that much earlier. The fact that it seems that there's this division across, religious lines. And if you see comments on social media, even what people say across religious bodies, you see that it's not as though we're now facing security. We're talking about this religion did this, it's the other religion. And the president, gave out a statement recently in the editorial which was published on that Christian magazine. He talked about, he believes that 90% of those affected belong to this certain religion. He tried to talk about how there's a danger of being split across this? And it's something that seems to be getting worse by the day. How should we address this? Because if we don't handle this, then we'll have perhaps a bigger problem on our hands.
No, we have many big problems, many elephants in the room. The moment you have a problem of insecurity, a problem of lack of capacity to deal with specific issues of security challenges, that is to say, to be able to punish. You see, for me, there are 4 buckets of security. There is intelligence gathering, there is enforcement, and then there is the adjudication, the court process, and then there is the correction, the prisons. You must look at it from the full gamut. Once I feel insecure that the person who commits a crime against me will not get punished, that person will not get hunted down by the state, then I begin to look at the state as an unfair umpire. And more so, when you now have a situation where all the heads of the security apparatus in the country are of the same ethnic group and of the same religion. So people who are of the other religion then begins to feel a certain sense that all hands are not on deck to resolve this problem. So I think you have touched on a very important point. And I think that managing Nigeria's diversity is a key ingredient of every government in Nigeria. This government has failed woefully in managing the diversity of Nigeria. The current government of Nigeria does not reflect the diversity of Nigeria. And that is why people from different ethnic groups or religion are beginning to feel a sense of marginalization, a sense that somebody somewhere does not care about them. And it doesn't mean that the people really don't care. It is a perception issue. It could be a perception issue. But what is worse than perception is the fact that nothing is being actively done to manage diversity, to reflect Nigeria's diversity.
Do you think state police is the way to go?
So I don't join that argument of state police for 2 reasons. I said because it gives us a wrong notion of policing. Nigeria is already, why we're saying that the states cannot own police, individuals own police. When you put a security man on your gate, you're already policing.
No, that's...
I'm coming.
I'm sure that's not police
I'm
as
coming.
it is.
No, when you hire a security man and put him at your gate, and in some communities, they even open vigilantes and give them guns, local guns, to form as vigilante. Local people are already performing the functions of police. So when I ask Nigeria, what is this conversation about what name a police force bears? I want to see operational control of police by local authorities. You cannot be calling the state chief executive, state security officers in name. You must give them the capacity. And what is the fear of that capacity? The fear have always been that it will be misused, that people feel that the federal government is 2 degrees away, that they cannot use it against individuals, that state governments are too close to us, that if they have the capacity, they will use it against their enemies. Genuine fear. But the solution to that fear is in our institutions. And part of the way to build those institutions is that the federal government must realize that it's game over. It's no more on that they will sit from Abuja and control the police force. They have failed us. I mean, you go to a police station today, there is no paper and pen for you to write a statement. You have to buy it because there's no budget for it. The average policeman today, his salary, his insurance, cannot pay for the dangers he suffers on the road.
So let me just get this right. You're saying you're not entirely in support of state police, but you support state funding the police. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, I'm saying that I don't support the argument about who should control the police. I don't want to join the argument. I am only saying, and because Nigeria has a way of bringing words that become divisive. So once you say state police, you just get people divided. My argument is, police must be decentralized. The operational control of the police must go down to the local authorities. They must go down to the local authorities.
Whatever name it is called.
Because whatever name it is called.
Well, meaning we just need to have a conversation about how do we reorganize the police force.
Yes.
That's what you're saying.
Yes, totally. The police force we have today is incapable of delivering security. Totally incapable.
All right, so there you go. That's Mr. Osita Chidoka, Special Advisor to the Chairman of the PDP on Strategy and External Engagements. Thank you for your time this morning.
Thank you very much.
We will be back in a moment. Don't go away. Let's take a look at some comments coming through from you, the ones we can take. JP Educate talking about national security says the greatest problem we have in this country is playing politics with security. In Iran, the president threatened to resign if the military decides to lie to the masses concerning the Ukraine flight saga. We should always try to be genuine concerning security issues.
Interesting. This next one is from Ajulu_Charles. He speaks about public office. Says, our public office holders need a bold, stern red card. That's according to him. That should come by way of drastic downward review of their pay. Nigeria is almost 60 years and basic things of life are unavailable.
And we have this one from, it's an email, says the problem of insecurity in Ikorodu. Cult boys are taking laws into their hands in some parts of Ikorodu, Lagos. And these include Odokekere, Odonla. They engage in the act of killing people and also attacking innocent people when going and coming back from work. Let me also bring to your notice that from Ikorodu down to Odogunyo and Itaoluwo, there is no single police station or police division in these areas. Please help call on those in charge. This is from Etim.
Well, we'll hope that the authorities will do what they have to do about that one. So we welcome your comments. Just keep sending them to us. We appreciate all of them. We'll see you tomorrow. Thank you for watching. I'm Chamberlain. What's up?
I'm Kaide Okikele.
I'm Ayo Makinde.
And I'm Maokwe Ogunyu, so thank you for watching.